everybody. So I went live late last night, and we did a late night crypto in Rome. So a lot of this morning, we're gonna have to try to switch gears a little bit. No work. We go to the van by the river. My camera isn't on. You probably don't even care about that, but good morning, Matt, Mindy, JC, and then Fujinami. Small group today. Good morning, everybody. So, what am I looking at here this morning? Well, if you go to a really low time frame, like the 1 hour, you see the first signs of Bitcoin struggling to break to the upside after breaking out the all-time high. As long as it doesn't come meaningfully below the prior all-time high, we're still in okay shape, so I won't overreact. But this is the first sign that we might be heading for a bit of a rolling top, or maybe not as high of a breakout as people want. I know Miles, for example, was calling for a 84K, which is right at, again, the standard 1 deviation fib extension level. We'll see if we get that 80K. The recipe for a blow off top the rest of this year is very simply, we get a lot of buying starting probably today. It'd have to be really today. A lot of volume coming in, pushing price up over the next, through the end of the week maybe, to 84K. And then we could get our expected, November shakeout sell off. You can see that the 50 days coming in right now at almost 56,000. We also need to get price trending up in this direction pretty strongly so that we can get the 50 day. We need the 50 day to be up here closer to the 67,000 level, because price is going to want to come back down to that 50 day moving average, in my opinion. But speaking of my opinion, good morning, everybody. Everything that you hear here today is just my opinion about what I see in the markets. This is not financial advice. If you were to take trades blindly based on anything that you see here, you're going to end up losing all your money and living in a van down by the river with Boneholder and Doge here. At least you'll have some puppy dogs to keep you company. All right, and dog coins. You have all your dog coins to keep you company while they go to zero. So let's look at a few things. Funding rates this morning are creeping up. So this means that this price action is currently not being supported by real volume. There's more leverage buying than there is real buying at the moment, because price is going sideways, maybe down a little bit. But yeah, since we looked at it yesterday, I went live and price was it was sitting right here at this level, 66, the fib level we got right here. It was sitting here right at 67.7. It broke to the upside of that right after I got off live, and then made almost 1,000K up, and then it's come back down to it, and it's sitting right there on that area. So this is the key level that we need to hold at this point, and then resume up off of here. What happens is, just a small side note, when these parabolic trend lines, when you break out like this a little bit, and you're holding a level just above the all-time high, like a fib level, I go ahead and move my trend line out, and I get the bottom touch before we get the actual launch, and that's my breakout trend line. Otherwise, I'm maintaining kind of a wider stop until this price action plays out, because what I don't want to happen is to put too tight of a stop under here and just get wicked out, and it just wicks right under here and bounces. So my stops are still currently, my stops are currently at 66,000. So I'm pretty confident that if we do wick down below this all-time high that much, that even if it does bounce, it's going to continue to find weakness. But so that's what I'm looking for right now. Let's see if this modified, and then this might end up being more of a trend line over here, something like this. So it's looking for what the market wants as kind of a launch trend line. But as of right now, it's kind of predictably weak. And I'm not super excited about the price action just yet. I know it's a new all-time high. Great. That's good. However, I've seen lots of new all-time highs this year, and they really haven't gone anywhere. From this one, yeah, we really haven't been trading below this January all-time high very much, but that was made in early January. So just think about this. All year long, since this peak over here, we're up We're up 4% from that peak in 200 days. So let's see if we can find a footing here and resume up. Let's take a look at comments. According to Benjamin Cowan, this recent push past 68K new all-time high when accounting for money supply increases. Okay, yeah, so the M2, so I have a chart on that. If I go to my BTC charts, I have this M2V, I have M1 and M2. Let's see what the M2 looks like. What on earth? Leave me alone. So against M2, we made a new all-time high on that last push on the 20th versus the M2 money supply. But if I take BTC, one exclamation point, we'll take the Deribit futures. That doesn't look right. That's not the one I want. BTC. We'll just take BTC perp. And we'll say over M2 money supply divided by M1. We did M2 already, right? M1V. It's not a crypto. It's all money velocity 1. All right. Divided by M1V. Enter. There we go. Yeah, so this last one versus M1 and M2. I don't know if there's another one he's looking at, but the 20th one did make an all-time high. So this is the second all-time high past the first one on both M1 and M2 money stock, money supply. All right, greetings, Matthew. .USD. Hey, MR Herc. Good morning. Nice to have you with us. So what we're looking at here again is, are we going to continue to push higher, or is this going to roll over on us? Basically, long story short, let's look at DOT real fast. Asked about DOT. All-time high. It's consolidating nicely above the all-time high here. In this case, looks pretty good. Now, all of these all-time high breakouts, have you guys noticed this? Ethereum, Polkadot, they've been fairly what I would call muted. They're very calm. They're not like going blockbuster. I don't know if that has to do with the fact that these are starting to become pretty significant market cap plays, and so it takes just more. What's that noise in the background? More investment to push to move it. And again, you know, for like the millionth time, it doesn't take. You don't necessarily have to have a lot of buying. Price can move up a lot on just sellers not willing to sell, but in general, the way the markets work, there's so many market participants. In general, you do need to have reasonable buy volume to offset any sort of incoming supply as you open up new willing sellers. Okay, so but DOT looks good from a technical analysis perspective here on the 12-hour. You've already had your retest resumption. Let's go to a daily. Where's our NOS daily? So right here is your support. This is a Bitfinex chart, which is obviously not lining up very well. I don't like this chart. I don't know what's going on with it. Let's go to a different chart. Kraken chart. Here's your support right here at 51.85. This is the daily close from the 5th, and then the open, and then we had bullish recovery off of that open on the 6th. The close on the 5th, open on the 6th. So that's going to provide support here. It's been tested a few times. At this point, you know, it's being tested right now as we speak, of course. If it were to lose that level, you're going to come back probably to the prior all-time high, at least again. You've already tested that once. So we'll see. This swing high over here might be a place to look for support if you end up losing all that. You technically have some support here at 48. That's where it hit before. This is going to be your primary support below. And then otherwise you look for support below that. But odds are, the probabilities would seem to indicate, given this uptrend and all this consolidation below the breakout, a 48 retest is probably your worst case scenario in the immediate future, but you never know. Those are levels to watch. Probably a reasonable, if you're really bullish on it, you know, this is a good opportunity in my opinion, not financial advice. You see this support level we got right here? This is a very low risk entry. So you can take an entry right here, right now, put your stop at 51 if you're trading, if you're actively trading, maybe put your stop at like 51.50. But that gives you like a 15-cent stop and a lot of potential upside. But you know real fast that if it goes below these wicks right here, it's probably come back down to $48. We did the same exercise on Matic the other day. Told people the exact same thing. Look, as right there, that candle we were coming into support, or one of these candles, we were coming to support. I said, look, you can just put a buy right here with like an almost immediate stop loss, and if it gets below that, it's probably come back down to the next support level at 180. All right, Bitcoin's making a little push here, holding this support level. No problem, Chris. Chris asks, is Bitcoin going to drag because unlike the past cycles, there are many viable projects with real upside potential and adoption and bigger upside for gains? In other words, is the total crypto market cap more important than just Bitcoin's? So it's a good way to look at it. Bitcoin is now a piece of the ecosystem. The thing about Bitcoin is its potential is more measured in the fact that it's the reserve currency for crypto, and it's also it's competing to be a store of value and a nominal currency or world reserve currency. So currently it's kind of considered the reserve currency for crypto. There's a lot of liquidity tied to it, so most altcoins, a lot of altcoins, when they very first start trading, they actually trade versus Bitcoin. And then they add trading for stable coins and maybe Ethereum later and other bigger pairs. But when it first starts trading, a lot of times it starts trading versus Bitcoin. So you kind of have to buy it with Bitcoin first. So Bitcoin is the primary liquidity pair of most crypto. Therefore, you can see that it's seen as the reserve asset for crypto, and it's obviously the largest market cap. So there's two ways to look at this. One is all the other crypto, are they going to take funds away from Bitcoin? Are they going to pull interest in buying away from Bitcoin? Or is it the other way around, that what's good for crypto in general is good for Bitcoin? I subscribe to the theory that since Bitcoin is the reserve asset, and in a lot of ways Bitcoin transcends the fundamental metrics because of the discovery that it brought, scarce money, the organic nature in which it came into the world at just the right time. Very interesting, set of dynamics around Bitcoin, and it being the discovery of this space. I think it transcends a lot of things, and so therefore I think it's pretty well etched in as the reserve asset. So it's more of my opinion that when the rest of the crypto ecosystem, the total market cap, as this climbs upward, that's actually good for Bitcoin, because I think things will continue to be pegged to Bitcoin, and Bitcoin will continue to be the standard by which they're measured. And as the reserve asset, it doesn't need any fundamental valuation metrics of its own. The cumulative valuation metrics for the reserve base that it serves is what gives it its value. So basically, another way of thinking of that is we've got this gold 2.0 narrative, and we saw actually Bitcoin just took out silver's market cap. So it's both a store of value. So people buy Bitcoin just as a store of value and inflation hedge. There are people doing that. Maybe not the market in total, but there are segments of the market that are doing that. And then also the value of all the other cryptocurrencies and all the other projects combined also, I believe, gives value actually to Bitcoin. So sometimes Bitcoin will lag. We have this kind of dancing relationship here on the Bitcoin dominance chart between the value of altcoins versus other coins versus Bitcoin. But this is in a downtrend. Obviously, long term, this is in a downtrend. But A is trying to put on a little bit of a bottom right now. But I see this trend will probably continue to play out as there's more viable projects outside of Bitcoin, that Bitcoin's total market cap in relation to the pie is going to shrink. But Bitcoin is always, in general, will move up more than it'll decline versus the others. So basically, I don't know how I'm trying to say this, but it's the reserve asset. So what's good for other coins is good for Bitcoin, I would say. And it's not a one-to-one relationship. It's not like if Ethereum gains $1 trillion in locked-in value that Bitcoin's going to go up $1 trillion too. No, it's more like as Ethereum gains, Bitcoin's also going to appreciate. Maybe not equally, but appreciate alongside it. All right, be right back, guys. 1 second. All right, sorry about that. Let's see what we got here for other So yeah, so I think the answer is kind of both. Ultimately, yes, there's money flowing into other projects other than Bitcoin, but when the dust settles, basically, as those projects go up, so say Solana or whatever, right? Solana blows up. At first, Bitcoin's going to lag, like it's going to do really well versus Bitcoin on this chart. But then what's going to happen over time is this is going to normalize. And as the value of any potential project increases, then that's going to help Bitcoin's price appreciate because it's the reserve asset for that project, for that ecosystem, whatever you want to call it. So all the value that gets locked in DeFi, all that stuff, if you look at the DeFi perpetual futures here, all this value that's getting locked in over here and all these different projects that are being built out, that all lends to build Bitcoin's value up, actually. It's a little bit of both. All right, what else do we got here? Interesting, he's looking at different data. Anyway, yay. Thoughts on ADA ETH? Sorry if you've already covered ADA. Just got here. No, I haven't covered ADA yet this morning. I've got an ADA ETH chart here. Yeah, it got pretty beat down there. Obviously, this looks like very much like the Bitcoin chart, but maybe a little bit worse. Yeah, starting to bounce. Obviously, you see it starting to try to put in some support. We've got this support level right here. We want to see it hold. I've got other levels here. Let's get rid of these other levels. These aren't in play anymore. This is my rock bottom level, pretty much. Right down there. Let's get around. We don't need all that noise. It's all noise. Actually, I'm just going to clear this chart out. All right. Let's go to the weekly. So this is more like a dance between two players. It's a longer term thing. So you can see we actually closed the weekly just below this weekly, and then now we bounced. Now this is not a commonly traded liquidity pair, so this is not like this is just a chart that's kind of more of a general. And it's interesting to see the dynamic between how Ethereum is doing versus Cardano, right? And then leading up to the Mary's hard fork and then the Alonzo hard fork, you can see that obviously that hype around Cardano led it to have big pops versus Ethereum. But now we need to get real adoption, right? And so this little bit of a move right here, we'll see if it gets faded or if it can find some footing here. I would say just looking at this chart, you see these weekly levels right here? This is pretty clear. This is where Cardano came into resistance versus Ethereum. I'm going to go ahead and just draw a weeklies line right there, so my weeklies are blue. We need to get over that. This was resistance in the past 3 times. Let's and then we got over it, but then we now we're finding our way back under it here. So this has been our kind of key pivot. Now see if Cardano can start making closes above this area. And then we know that Cardano is probably a good trade versus Ethereum, versus owning just Ethereum. Ethereum, though, is breaking out to the upside of this channel, interestingly enough. So that's, yeah. And the other bigger risk to Bitcoin, to answer the other question earlier, is I think Ethereum is single-handedly the biggest risk to Bitcoin. Is if Ethereum is ever seen as a more viable reserve asset than Bitcoin for the crypto ecosystem, then that's going to really hurt Bitcoin's price because Ethereum is going to take all that value away from. I don't think it will be though, because at the end of the day, Ethereum's a smart contract platform, and as a platform, it has competition. So you have fans of Ethereum that want to make it out to be like sound money and everything else, and that's fine. The Ether token being more or less becoming deflationary now, it's not going to have an arbitrary central planners that just print more of it, right? It's got a fixed release schedule, and with ETH 2.0, it will be deflationary. So, yeah, I don't see it as a viable alternative to Bitcoin in that respect. There are people that make that argument. It's not how I view it, but it is breaking to the upside over here of this uptrend channel that I had, which is interesting. So it should run here. What we want to see happen, if for the health of the entire crypto space, We need Bitcoin actually to front run everything else here for a little bit. We need it to break out, and we need Bitcoin dominance to bounce, and we need it to take out this swing high over here on the Bitcoin dominance chart. The reason I say that is if we're going to get a continuation of the entire crypto market, we need a Bitcoin season. We need a period of time where a lot of these profits find their way into Bitcoin, because as of right now, the rest of the altcoins are getting kind of frothy. And especially, you've seen earlier this year we had JPEG pictures of rocks trading for the equivalent of a mega mansion, and then we had or ownership. The JPEG itself isn't what's interesting; it's the ownership of the object. But nonetheless, then you've had virtual land, sandbox, and Decentraland going absolutely bananas. So those are mini bubbles inside of this larger bubble. What we want to see is we want to see all the mini bubbles deflate, and we want to see the big bubble, which is Bitcoin, namely its status as a reserve asset versus fiat and a store of value versus other stores of value. We want to see it start to cement that role. That means that a lot of capital needs to flow into it. And alternatively, also what we need to do is we need it to take off and deflate all those other bubbles and have funds rotate back from these other pseudo bubbles back into Bitcoin, and then those other areas can continue to appreciate. I don't think ownership of JPEGs is ultimately going to be what the most interesting thing with NFTs is going to be, but like for example, that represents the extreme early phases of these digital ownership and rights, right? Which is going to be a really big deal. Whether ownership of certain JPEGs maintains their value or not, I don't know. I don't see any reason why like Ether Rock and like the punks wouldn't maintain some very high value, because they are these rare early artifacts of this whole ecosystem. But those bubbles, the bigger point is that those were clearly bubbles and how fast they blew up. And not to say like a bubble, like there was the Y2K.com bubble. There was a reason for that bubble. Probably 80% of the .com companies that went bust, they got huge valuations. They ended up going bust, but the ones that survived through, you can understand the reason for the hype, because the Facebooks and the Amazons and Apple and Microsofts of the world and Netflix of the world, that made sense of why people were so excited about it. So the same thing is true of a lot of these smaller bubbles we see going on with the NFT space, the virtual like gaming, real estate, gaming land, gaming items. Those are probably going to be short-term bubbles that there's a lot of projects that are going to end up having no value when it's all said and done, or very little value compared to what they trade at now. But there will be several that do maintain their value, and there'll be lots of good use cases that come out of it. So, but the bigger point is that for a healthy relationship, we need those bubbles to deflate. We need it to rotate into Bitcoin, because the big money is going to come into crypto if crypto is seen seriously, and namely on the back of Bitcoin, as an asset class. And so we need Bitcoin to make a big move here, so that we have more of that traditional finance, more of the traditional money world rotating into crypto in some form. Hopefully we'll start with Bitcoin. It doesn't really matter where it comes from, but right now today, obviously the clear path is the big money managers moving into Bitcoin as a store of value and as a hedge, digital gold, whatever they want to call it. So those are my thoughts on those subjects. Opinions of Litecoin. So I've got a big trade on Litecoin. I don't know who asked me that. I've been covering Litecoin now for a couple weeks. Now, if you guys, anybody who's been with me a while knows that I was like bearish as all get out on Litecoin. But I said time and time again, when the trade setup was there, I would be there. I would be in the trade. I promise you. I'll be in the trade when the time is there. But I kept bringing out that if you look at this in a long-term time frame, like this chart's a double top, right? But if we go to the Bitcoin chart, LTC, BTC, see, it's just in a huge downtrend versus Bitcoin, right? And that's what I kept saying that, guys, this isn't a huge downtrend. This has got a key support level right here. It can, so these very long-term wedge patterns, a lot of times what they do is they end up kind of flaming out and going sideways out of here. Or they break down to the downside of this support. they can break to the upside as well. But you know, I said for a long time I don't see much. Now we had some really good trades on Litecoin. I think this, where was that over here? Yeah, see this big pop right here? I was trading Litecoin over here earlier this year. It treated us well. We had some really good trades in Litecoin, both over here and over here. And now we're back, right? The setup was there. I started really watching how it was reacting coming into the support level. We got below it. I watched really, really close. And when it started regaining its footing, we started building our position late October, right here. As we regained this support level, as we were coming into support versus Bitcoin, as Bitcoin was declining, we started really buying into Litecoin. Because on the other side, Litecoin broke out. So it was sitting right on support versus Bitcoin. And on this chart, it was breaking out of this wedge on the USD chart. So we built our Litecoin position all through here. So I have a really, really big trade on Litecoin. Now I did take a third of it off way too early here at 232. 232 is my initial take profit. So I was a little bit overweight, bigger trade than I was probably comfortable with, but it was such a good setup. I took a third off at 232. I was hoping it would consolidate right above or right below and give me another opportunity to re-enter, but it looks like it's going to blast off a little bit here, so we'll just keep an eye on it. This is what Litecoin lags Bitcoin. This is a bit of a red flag though. Litecoin is making a little too big of a move and starting to be uncomfortable. And what happens is if Litecoin makes a really big move versus Bitcoin, that's sometimes a good indicator that Bitcoin's getting ready to roll over. So you see over here, Litecoin made its biggest move. Now this is still a baby move compared to what Litecoin did, you know, back in May. So hopefully what we're looking at is, you know, a spike that looked like February right now, right? Like a small recovery and then Litecoin fades as Bitcoin does its thing. But the biggest pops came when Bitcoin is getting ready to roll over. So we're keeping a close eye on this. So that's, I mean, this in theory, this is also a red flag. My take profit targets on Litecoin are, as far as versus Bitcoin, are the top of this top upper trend line up here. So this is what I've always said. I've talked about this for a long time. This general kind of downtrend channel that we've had, I actually had it topped out right here before, and now, you know, we've got a new kind of top over here. I'll try to play it to at least this trend line here, maybe up to this trend line here. But the thing is if we get to this bottom trend line, we're now outside of this breakout, you know, potential right here on the Bitcoin chart. So we're gonna see what happens as we come into right here in this zone, right there. I'll be real cautious and see what happens. And then if we were to get a breakout retest resumption out here, that would be something to behold. It's going to be a really big move by Litecoin, potentially. Hopefully it doesn't happen in the next few days, because if it does, then we're looking not too pretty on Bitcoin. But yeah, I mean, Litecoin's a good trade versus Bitcoin. Let me just throw this over here. I've done this little exercise a few times. I'm just going to do it again just to highlight what I was talking about, why I built my position on Litecoin. Compare LTC UST. All right, here's the Litecoin and Bitcoin comparison, right? So very simply, Litecoin mirrors Bitcoin, right? So other altcoins have this kind of inverse relationship with Bitcoin. So sometimes when Bitcoin is weak, these other altcoins do really well. So if Bitcoin's in an uptrend, as Bitcoin consolidates, a lot of times, a lot of altcoins will do well after the fact. Litecoin is generally one of the first to move, and it does so especially when Bitcoin's about to roll over. So it makes its biggest move as kind of a red flag that Bitcoin's getting ready to roll over as well. But it moves just ahead of other altcoins. So generally speaking, you can almost plan to play a rotation from a big Litecoin move into other altcoins and then continue to see Bitcoin roll over. This is what happened last year, right? It mirrored it, and then it lagged. Then it lagged for a little bit, and then it caught up and surpassed the gains in Bitcoin. So this is when we started this time right here. Basically the same exact thing. Started building a position over here on this lag. As Litecoin is lagging versus Bitcoin, this is where we built our position. And now Litecoin is doing its job of catching up, and probably it's going to want to pass Bitcoin. Although it's not a really good look, because if it were to do this and actually kind of pass Bitcoin on gains. If we look at, we just line up from the beginning of the year maybe. That pop right there, when Litecoin finally surpassed Bitcoin, was the death knell for Bitcoin. So just keep that in mind. If Litecoin actually were to get up here by percentage gain and surpass Bitcoin, hopefully what we're looking at is something like this, where it lagged a little bit and it's catching up, and then it lags a little bit longer. But if Litecoin were to catch up and pass Bitcoin, this is not a good sign for Bitcoin continuing to break all time, to continue to move upward. Those are my thoughts on Litecoin. Yeah, I mean, it's a good trade. That's why I've been lining that one up for a little bit here. Yeah, I'm not super enamored. What's our funding rate looking like? Yeah, this is not too terribly hot. Let's go look at it on this chart over here. I'm gonna pull up Glassnode. Oh, not Deribit. I've clicked the wrong link 3 times now to pull up the chart I want to pull up. Sorry. I've got it up on this other screen here. 1 second, guys. Let's see here. Let's look at our print from yesterday. Do we have coins come onto exchange? Yeah, a little bit off. It's pretty neutral right now. Coins on off exchange. Let's look at the derivatives print. Our futures funding rate yesterday wasn't horrible. I'm just going to pull up the aggregate chart of all the different things. All right. Open interest is rising. Open interest on perpetuals is rising. Volume was declining. We had a volume spike here yesterday on volume. A lot of short liquidations, obviously. All right. So you see this spike every time we get this big spike, right? Like obviously October 20th, and just back in September, we had a big spike in perpetuals rate up to about 0.04, something about this level, and it sold off really hard. And you had another spike of perpetuals aggregate, so the mean perpetuals funding rate of like 0.4 in October. Then we had this big sell-off. Then we had a small increase in perpetuals future right back to 0.04 and a little bit of a smaller sell-off. Bitcoin more or less went sideways, kind of bored people out of their leverage positions. And now leverage is slowly rising. I bet today's print will be closer to that 0.4. It's a problem though when you see price sliding sideways or downwards. So when price is doing this action and your perpetuals funding rate is going up almost parabolically, which it kind of is right now. Funding looks like about like doing that. That's a good recipe for a big sell-off. So yeah, I'm starting to lean toward the sell-off side, like we're headed for a sell-off here. You can kind of see it starting to happen on the charts here. But this right now is a bull flag, so let's not overreact. Don't go freak out. But be prepared, mentally prepared, I'd say. Right now, this is just a bull flag, so it's not a big deal. So what we want to do is we want to let that bull flag play out. We want to let that find support here and hopefully break to the upside of this flag. That'll give us a really good anchor for the second point of this parabolic launch angle trend line. So the launch started back here. The impulse started way back here. So really our best launch angle trend line is to take these points right now. So from the bottom of this, it's a little bit of a reset with this very strong move to the upside from the bottom. But this is going to give us a good anchor point out here to anchor a new uptrend trend line when this completes. But we need to give it time to complete and need to give it time to do its thing. What we don't want to see is Bitcoin fall meaningfully below this prior all-time high. It needs to bounce off of there pretty well. But yeah, we'll just see what it does. If you draw, my big concern right now is if I draw like on a really low time frame, I don't want to react to this low of a time frame. This is not what I trade on. But you can see on the 1 hour, you got your first sign of weakness in that you had this trend line here from this big breakout move, this reset, and then a takeoff again. You've lost that trend line. You've come to the downside. You've bounced into it, and you curled back over the downside. So what we need is a strong bounce. As soon as we touch this line right here or get slightly below it, we need it to bounce really strong, really hard. And if it doesn't, those signs of rolling over are getting stronger. Or if it breaks the downside of this, I'm just watching it right now live, right? We don't want it to break to the downside of this bull flag either. Let's see if we get some more intel on this bull flag structure. What is it really looking like? So we take this top here on a 1 hour. It's a very gradual bull flag. It's really your bull flag right there. Let's see if it holds that level or not. Let's see what the funding rates are doing. Are funding is funding increasing into that decline? It is. It is right now. It's not a good sign. Litecoin is going really parabolic. It's not a good sign. I actually need to move my stop loss up on Litecoin, it looks like. My stop loss is currently down at 214. But should this want to roll over on us, I need to get a little bit more off here at the 240s, 250s. But I'll give it room to work. I mean, right now we're still on that parabolic uptrend, and these things can kind of fake you out a little bit. So give it some space to work. I would rather keep my trade on and end up selling lower than to give up upside, right? So I'd rather get clear indications that we're breaking down and be able to get out over here in the 240s than to sell right now blindly at 260 or something and miss on a move, you know, a sustained move to 388 or my ultimate price target, right? So it's just a risk reward thing, right? Right now my risk is really well defined. I've got a stop in profit over here. So I'd have, like, you know, the risk is how much upside am I going to miss out on? So by being too risk adverse and being too jumpy and taking profits as over here instead of letting it continue to run, I might be missing out a lot more upside. I already did that, right? My 232 order that was in statically from way over here, right? I think we broke 207. I immediately put a 232 order in. In hindsight, also, one small note, I was thinking about this yesterday. As I saw this consolidating here and give us a 4-hour retest and the resumption print, I really should have canceled that 232 order because the setup was here to blast right through that. And I thought about it yesterday. I was like, you know what? The setup's here to blast right through the 232 level. I should probably take that off because it's going to blast through and then put a stop under 232 as opposed to a take profit order. So small adjustment there. I should have done, but I think at the time I was probably busy with other things. Yeah, I actually literally when it hit 232, I was definitely not in front of my computer. But at some point, I probably should take that opportunity. So you see that happen, that unfolding, right? A 4-hour breakout of the 223 level, a retest of it, and then a resumption. On that resumption signal, that's probably going to give you enough momentum because it basically consolidated below this resistance. As tell you, it's probably going to blast through that resistance. So I should have canceled that order and just then, when price got up here, close this 4-hour up here, then put my stop loss underneath there and then continue to push the trade as opposed to taking profit as it came right into it. Small adjustment would have been some more gains there. All right, take a look at comments. Dot 84K, love the show. Morning. Did you hear about Commonwealth Bank, biggest bank in Australia, offering crypto services? Yeah, I did hear about that. Now remember, people have asked me this question about could the lower volume be because of lower inventory? No, it's not. That's not. It cannot be. Volume has nothing to do with the availability of the asset, or very little to do. If there's enough buyers, price is actually going to surge upward to find sellers to meet that buyer's demand. So if it's a really low volume, it's a very illiquid asset. Yeah, this is going to come down. Let's see here. Let's see what happens. I'm going to keep a close eye on this. We'll see if we need a really good bounce off of here. But on a low, if there's a low liquidity on something, right? That means there's not a lot of availability on exchanges or whatever it is. If there's plenty of buying volume, that's what causes price to surge up. That means buyers are coming in, buyers are willing to buy, but there's not willing sellers. There's not enough availability for the market maker also. But the low liquidity creates a large spread because the market maker needs a bigger spread to maintain the liquidity necessary in the market. So you'll see the spread increase. So these conditions generally create a larger spread, but they also will cause price to surge upward, right? So this is what we're looking for. We need the volume coming in. volume coming in means people are excited about buying this asset. The new all-time high, whatever else, people are excited. You've got people piling into the asset, and there's not a lot of willing sellers, and there's low supply. So the low supply really just increases the spread, is all it does. Makes trading kind of inefficient. But on the other side, when we look at the illiquid supply ratio and things like that, and we look at namely the coins on exchange, we'll go back to the exchange here. When you look at the balance on exchange, what we're looking at is not the absolute number, it's the trend. We're looking at the trend. The trend tells us, for example, that there are more convicted buyers. So buyers that buy Bitcoin and then put it and self-custody it offline in a cold wallet, they're more convicted. They're probably going to hold on longer. So this just indicates to us that there's more highly convicted buyers that are not going to sell as easily. That's all this tells us. Because remember, we went from a peak of 3 million coins on exchange down to 2.5 million. There's still 2.5 or 2.4 million coins on exchange. So don't think for a minute there's not enough coins to crash the market in the short term, right? Like we could go to zero. Like literally we could go to a few dollars. If everybody all of a sudden, all the coins that were on exchange, if they just wanted to dump, Bitcoin would go to like maybe thousands of dollars, right? So it can tank really hard on the volumes that are on exchange. This is just a macro indicator that tells us that there are more convicted buyers coming into the marketplace at a longer term. But on a short time frame, there's still 2.4 million Bitcoins on exchanges ready for the owner to log into their account and click sell. So it can still tank in the short term. So don't get that confused that there's these illiquid supply ratios and things like that. The other thing too, it takes 30 minutes, right? If you're self-custody, it takes 30 minutes for you to do a transaction either on a decentralized exchange or to transfer coins to an exchange and click that market sell button. So this can change drastically in just 30 minutes time, right? So if there's some really bad news came out that Bitcoin network was down or the Taproot upgrade caused corruption, who knows, whatever, right? I mean, all those forces are in play that can take this asset down significantly. And something else I want to highlight. So don't get that confused. Remember, we were talking about how bullish on-chain was. We kept seeing this decrease, but we saw whales starting to sell. That was kind of the red flag. Whales are starting to sell over here, by the way, too. But you saw this. We continue to have a decline in coins on exchange, but price then still tanked. But what happened was, as price was coming off, coins came onto exchange right here. I highlighted this last night, this little wiggle right here. We built a little bit of a shelf in price as price kind of consolidated right here. And we saw this big blast of coins on exchange as that price consolidated. And then the next thing you know, price is just tumbling down. And then, of course, we had a big buyer. We don't know who this is yet. Nobody really knows. They haven't announced who they are. Somebody big bought a lot of coins and took them off exchange right here. Several thousand coins. And then that trend has continued. So, yeah, this is not looking great right now. Litecoin is mooning. Bitcoin's turning over. I'm about to get stopped out at 66K. I'm watching this go on. Yeah, I'm not going to move my stop. But yeah, my stop is at 66K. I'm probably going to get stopped out here. This needs to bounce. It really needs to bounce. Or this is another false breakout. And we're having this pattern starting to unfold here. So you see, I highlighted it the other day. Did a tweet about it. Now, again, I don't know that it's going to look exactly like this. I would doubt that it looks exactly like this. But you can see the general. This has been a theme, and it's important to understand this is more likely when you see this type of pattern playing out here. We need to have a recency bias in trading. Like, just because price action in 2017 was like up, little reset, up, little reset, up, little reset, we shouldn't all of a sudden expect Bitcoin to trade just like this when it hasn't traded like this since 2017. And we haven't seen this type of crazy price action since really 2019. It did something like this, right? It had a big, huge move in 2019. What we saw this cycle was a big move and then a bunch of false breakouts starting above this point. So the reality is that above roughly that level, we've seen a lot more false breakouts and sell-offs above 46,000 than we've seen parabolic moves, right? And breakout and run. Like, and again in 2017, if you look, I'm going to draw some lines here across the prior all-time highs, and you can kind of just see. I'm going to draw these as like green. You can see the behavior. Whereas the swing high over here was at like I don't even know what it was. But you can kind of, I think it was over here, yeah. Something like that. But you see the behavior, right? You have this behavior of breaking the prior all-time high and then retesting it very briefly and just running. But it would run and retest it days later for the most part. But you see this pattern, right? It would break the prior high and then boom, off it goes. Prior swing high. So it had this constant momentum. Break, retest, break, retest, break, retest, and all the way. We have not seen that behavior since we left this area over here. We did see it over here, break and then go. But the last time we saw that was below this kind of magical, this area right here, 43, 42,000. Ever since then, we've seen a pattern of breakout, sell-off, false breakout, sell-off, false breakout, sell-off, lower high, huge sell-off, breakup, kind of a false breakout here of this level, sell-off, false breakout, sell-off, and then maybe we'll see what this one ends up doing. This is the pattern now. This is not 2017. This is not 2013. 2013, just for reference, I keep bringing this up too. People go, it could look just like 2013. Does it really support that? In 2013, we clearly saw a big spike, consolidation, and a big spike. Let's go to the chart. Let's look at the actual 2013 price action. I'll put it on log here to make it easier to see everything. All right. The behavior was, this is the swing high from the bear market, swing high right here. You see that in August? We broke that and it just took off in 2013. And then we broke this prior all-time high over here, consolidated underneath it, broke it, and just took off, never looked back. Then it made this parabolic peak. So it made a parabolic top. And it was only trading in this price level for a few days. It was only here for a couple days. And then we had a lot of consolidation. But it never came back below this level. Never even touched it. It just consolidated. And then once it broke this little swing high right here, once it broke that, it was off to the races. And then once it broke this high, it was off to the races. And you never look back until the bear market over here, we got back below that peak. Okay? But that was the pattern, was break momentum, maintain momentum into a parabolic top, consolidate, break momentum into a parabolic top. That was 2013. Parabolic top, consolidation, parabolic top. If we're looking for 2021 to repeat 2013, you got to think of it like this. The pattern that we have in 2021 is not a break, parabolic top, consolidation, and then expected parabolic top. No, it's a breakout, rolling top, consolidation, probably a rolling top. That's the more likely outcome. That's the more likely, higher probabilistic outcome, is for it to do what we've seen. And we need to have a recency bias. Again, above this point, we've seen a different behavior. And the reason we've seen a different behavior is because at this point, Bitcoin took a claimed the market cap of $1 trillion or above, right? So Bitcoin became a $1 trillion asset above roughly this point. And ever since we've seen that kind of magic line get crossed, we've seen the behavior totally change. You see it really 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I would say, because of this false breakup. False breakdown, very manipulated, perfectly closed weekly and daily below a key support level, and then it blasted off. And then this kind of false breakout here was very clearly set up, looked like it just got slammed. And this has been a bit of a false breakout, right? It wasn't so much false, it consolidated beneath it, not the end of the world. But we'll see how that, you can see that pattern. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. I would say this is an example of it. This is an example of it. This is an example of it, and that's an example of it. So we have 8 examples of these false breakdowns or breakouts in 2021. So that's the pattern I'm looking for it to continue to play out. Let's go back to our chart here. Again, we'll see. We'll see. We need a bounce here. This needs a bounce convincingly, or it's not looking good. Look at Litecoin. It's going for that trend line right now. Actually, I may just close up the live stream and go trim some light. Look at Litecoin. This is not a good sign, guys. This is not a good sign. I'm gonna tighten up my Litecoin stop loss, probably live here. Actually, this is a lot going on at the same time. Litecoin's going for 294, probably. That's a big trade. I'm like, this is my okay. If Bitcoin rolls over, oh well. I made a gajillion, you know. My Litecoin trade is massively, ridiculously up right now. Yeah, it's not looking good, is it, guys? It's not looking good. Yeah, staying warm in Texas. See ya, Nick. Just look. Good morning. What are your thoughts on ETH peak? Will it lead or lag BTC? I think it should lag BTC. Oh my goodness, look at Litecoin go. Bitcoin's bouncing back here a little bit. All right, Bitcoin. It can't lose this wick right here. Here's your new. You cannot lose this low wick. 66.6. It can't lose it. It's got to bounce here, or it's rolling over. Litecoin's going for it, man. Goodness gracious. Hold on. I gotta check my account. Golly. These numbers don't seem real. I'm just in bewilderment about. It's all fake. It's just like the numbers on a screen on an exchange. Like I haven't taken any profit on these bigger moves here. And it's like this doesn't feel real. All right, let's take a look at the comments here. It's gonna repeat, just more painful, high and higher. What's your thoughts about an obvious on OBV and BTC doesn't look good daily for me? OBV, what? Explain to me what you mean by OBV. Is it not order blocks? I'm having a brain block about what you mean by OBV. Sorry. Check data. Is it a stunk, or is it a coin? Looks like it's a coin. Streamer data coin. Well, there's a little bit of a downtrend. A breakout of that might be all right. Daily levels. That's a lot. That's a low liquidity asset right there. I mean, like a lot of things in crypto right now, it's in a big wedge. You kind of put in, this has been the opportunity to buy over here in this kind of floor it put in. And when you broke back above that floor, right through here, came back into support. I don't have much to say on it. I don't know anything about the project. I think I might have heard of it actually, but I don't really remember. Let's go look at the actual project. You're just in a range right now, so I can't really say much about trading it. Streamer. Is this like real-time transfers that houses platforms for data economy? I don't know anything about it, so I'm going to refrain from commenting any more than it's in a big wedge pattern. Take a look at comments. What's going on with our coin? Did we get a bounce here on Bitcoin? All right, Bitcoin. You got to go. It's do or die. Let's take a look at the really short term. Let's look at the last 24 hours trading volume. Let's see if we're getting volume here. Now this takes a while for it to actually aggregate the data properly, so we are getting some reasonable volume in the last few minutes, but it's not like a big spike like we really need coming into that all-time high. I mean, we need like a big monster spike like this over here or bigger. We need somebody to show up and be like, no, I'm buying Bitcoin here. I'm gonna somebody big needs to come in and really just buy the heck out of it and send it, because otherwise it's gonna roll over. Got a little bit of battle going on though. Let's take a look at the Coinbase. Make sure I'm not logged in before I flip it over here. Yeah, I'm logged in, so I can't. Hold on. Somebody said there's a sell wall at 70K. There sure enough is. It's about a 2K coin sell wall, almost 2K, a little over 1,000, just right at 70,000. Yeah, there's a bit of a sell wall. Short squeezes will blast that sell wall though. That's the only thing, is that we're in an area right now that if people are trying to short right now, a short squeeze could kind of blast through that wall pretty fast. So, let's see the order flow here. The order flow is looking bearish. I had a big block. This one big block came in here. That's not that big. It wasn't big enough to do much. I would say the order flow on the order book looks more bearish than bullish at this very moment in time. Now that changes very fast, and that could change second to second almost, but a little bit more bearish. Yeah, we don't have a really aggressive algo in here propping up price. We just have kind of a battle two ways going on right now. What we need is we need somebody to come in here and wipe out the order book to the upside. Somebody that's got an algo that specifically targets the vulnerabilities in the order books of one or two large exchange, and just literally places orders and attacks the exact order book like surgically, and it'll send price, you know, $1,000 in a few seconds. And so you need something like that, or you need a big buyer, obviously. Just somebody come like, all right, I'm buying 10,000 Bitcoin in the next hour. I would say we're looking weaker than not, though. All right, back to comments. I don't know what's going to happen. We'll find out here soon. What's your thoughts on HNT? I can't remember what HNT is. Chart looks pretty bullish, I'd say. Probably a little too bullish. Yeah, it's like, so, you know, you can chase. I don't know if you know something about this that I don't, but your support level is 42, 47 right now. I don't think you've had any weekly closes up here. You hit your weekly close right there. Yeah, around 44. I mean, you know, this is one that maybe you should, if you're not in a trade currently, you know, this is one you should just probably keep an eye on for a reset back to support, back from some new market structure. But basically, if you're in the trade, you can just stay in it as long as you're above this little bit of trend line right here. Let's go to a 4 hour. There's your real launch trend line. Yeah, as long as you're above that trend line, you're in pretty good shape. And if you want to get really aggressive, you can look at like trying to play this. Probably a bit too aggressive. You want to give it more wiggle room than that if an asset's trending that strongly. This will be your first indication that you're getting some weakness, and then you can maybe, you know, trim just a little bitty bit. But honestly, this bottom trend line right here is the one I'd be watching. And what is it? What is HNT? Oh, it's Helium. Duh. Is that the one with the wireless access points? IoT. Yeah, low-powered wireless devices. Yeah. Helium. Duh. I knew it. That's what I thought I heard of it. It's really cool. I like it. If you're in an area that you have a lot of neighbors, I should have bought one of these. I'm in a subdivision. I probably could have made use of this. I never did, unfortunately. My general problem is I'm not a big fan of projects that are tied to capital expense. So there's a hardware component to it like this that it's totally fixed to. I'm not generally a huge fan of it. So I'm black-pilled on BTC. I don't know what that means. It's just going to repeat more painful and higher. Thoughts on OBV and BTC? All right, so yeah, that one's... What to Pat? I need you to tell me what you mean by OBV here. Do you think Litecoin will reach 290 today? Oh, I'm not a big fan of predicting. Today? No, I don't think it will. No. If it does, that's really bad sign that the market's about to roll over. But no, I don't think it will today. My guess is that we're going to top out any second now. It depends. So one of two things is going to happen. Bitcoin's going to roll over and drag Litecoin down with it, or Bitcoin's going to blast off and Litecoin's just going to lag while Bitcoin does its thing. The third alternative is that Bitcoin could just find a floor here and consolidate, and then maybe Litecoin keeps just trucking. Kind of doubt it, but I've got my trend line here. It's a very aggressive trend line. The less aggressive trend line is this bottom one down here. No, from this touch to that touch over here. This is the one that'll let me know that really momentum is cooling off, which gives us several days. This is just the first sign that we've lost some immediate momentum. This is just so way up, it's crazy. Yeah, I do not like the Bitcoin price action. I don't like the funding rates. I don't like anything about this anymore. Yeah, I think we're gonna get another fake breakout to the upside. Where'd all my moving averages go? No, did I close those? I didn't want to close those. Darn it. What happened? Did I lose all my MAs? Yep, I did. Dang it. I don't know how I did that. All right, so what I do is I just go to get the MA indicator just in case y'all don't or haven't watched my channel, and I pin it to a daily time frame, because no matter if I'm on the 4-hour or the 12-hour or the daily or the weekly, I want to see where the 50-day SMA is, regardless of where I'm at. So I say just print it to the 1 day, and then my 50 days red. All right. If we break down, that's my target. The March monthly might hold it as well. If we break down, it might be a slow, painful breakdown, whereas the 50-day finds its way up to the March monthly and they meet kind of there. Ultimately, this is the trend line though. I go to the 1 hour for accuracy on trend lines. I don't trade the 1 hour. So if you ever see that I share a chart on the 1 hour, I happen to just see something interesting and just shared it on Twitter or whatever. But I'm not trading that chart. I'm using it to dial in my trend lines, and then I'll flip back over to the 4 hour. As you can see, like the 4 hour, you don't get those same touches, but the 1 hour is going to give me a lot more accuracy in drawing that trend line to those bottom touches here. So this is the trend line I'm really watching right now. As I'm doing this live stream, I'm sitting here going, my stop is at 66,000. I'm literally wondering if I do want to slide some part of that stop down just below this trend line, support that's below that trend line, like 64. But reality is, if we hit 66, we're probably going to get a bounce and then start to curl over again. So I just don't want to mess with it. We shouldn't, like, there's just a lot of weakness right now. Let's look at the order book one more time over here. Nobody's stepping up to buy. And New York's open. It's 9:30 Central Time. New York's open. This is a bad. There's another thing too. Another red flag for me is these impulses have been during Asia. Big breakout during Asia. Slow sell pressure through New York yesterday. Big breakout during Asia, and then ever since New York's open here earlier a few hours ago. What are we at now? This is 1500. So New York would have opened, you know, last few hours over here. It's been basically down since New York opened. So New York, yeah, I mean, we had New York basically open 2 hours ago, right here. And it's been down. Sell pressure since New York opened. It's the wrong crowd. You want New York buying. Like I know Asia's a big market, all in all, but China banned Bitcoin. So that's a lot of people that are no longer really, if they are buying it, they shouldn't be. And we want the West buying this thing. We want a lot of volume on Coinbase. We want to see when New York opens up, we want Coinbase to go bananas. And we want to see a lot of buying coming in on Coinbase. Let's see where we're at here. So, yeah, like as usual, during the New York session, Coinbase is by far the largest, but the volume is still just not inspiring. It can change fast, right? So we're still not in like dire straits here. We're still above this, but we're getting close. Yeah, let's go to an hourly chart because this is just too, like, I'm not going to be able to get a whole lot off of this. So yeah, at the New York Open, we did get a good bit of buying here out of Coinbase, but it's not anywhere near what we need. We need like, where's a big one? Like that. And that was probably on a sell-off too. That's what's bad about these. The big, like, we need an hourly that looks, you know, this is a big Coinbase buy on the 7th here. But we need the volume coming in on Coinbase and during the New York session. So that's where, you know, the bigger Western companies that we want, or institutions that you need to be buying this, they're going to be buying mostly on Coinbase and 9 to 5 Monday through Friday US time. Let's go to comments. You're asking me if you should short Litecoin. Well, it's up and to the right. So until you get a downtrend and you sell into, so here's how you trade, right? It's just trading 101, and everybody has a different style. So maybe you're on a much lower time frame than me. On the time frames I trade on, we have left the downtrend in the intermediate time frame versus USD specifically, and we are in an uptrend, right? Ever since this breakout, this is clearly an uptrend. So we have a series of, there's your low before the breakout, there's your high. There's a higher low, a higher high, a higher, well, you know, this is a lower low than this over here, but it's a higher than this low, so it's kind of neutral. Lower high, lower lows, called consolidation, and then we've had a big breakout to the upside of clearly a higher high. But the general trend is that we've been putting in higher lows, namely this low and this first significant low over here, and we broke to the upside of this consolidation. So this little bit of, you know, lower high, lower low, I mean higher low, lower high, consolidation ended, we had this breakout. So now you're in a breakout pattern. So if you're going to short, what you want to do is you want it really to be in a downtrend. You want it to look like this is the time to short over here, in my opinion, right? So you're in a downtrend and you see that you're making these, so you want to sell coming into this resistance over here and 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 over here, and you keep doing it, sell into resistance over here until it breaks the trend and then reverses trend on you, and then so you've had a bunch of, you know, wins selling into resistance all the way down, and then you had your first couple losses right here. So you take a couple losses, and then guess what? Now you're in an uptrend, so you flip to buying support in an uptrend. And then it reverses on you, and you have a few losses trying to buy support over here. You end up getting stopped out, and the trend reverses on you, and you start selling into resistance. That's how you trade. So right now, we've just flipped. We've just flipped from this to this, right? This is where we're at now. So what you want to do, at this point in time, you just flip from that downtrend, selling. Now you've made this higher high, you know, from this point over here, and higher lows. Now what you want to do is buy and support. So you're over here. So look at this chart, this breakout. Now we're in buy the dip mode until we see that the trend changes on us. Now this is probably, honestly, you'd probably been doing it wrong if you bought the dip in here, because you can probably clearly see there's probably some resistances coming in there, but nonetheless, you get the idea. So I would say no, I would not be shorting Litecoin right now. Let's get rid of all these lines. Sorry, I gotta get rid of my doodling. But on this big of a move, I mean, on a really short time frame, sure, yeah, probably. It's probably if I go like a 12-minute. The separation, so what I would use on a 12-minute chart, like a really low chart, is I would use some smaller EMA, like a really slow time frame EMA, and I would wait for it to curl under that. So, you know, I'm not interested in doing this short-term trading, but I'd probably use like a 9-period EMA right here. So we're on the, say on the 1 hour. On the 1 hour chart, on the 9-period EMA, the 9-hour EMA, when this drops below it and you get confirmation of resistance, then you can probably, or close below it, or however you trade. That could be a short-term scalp to the downside. That would give you your first indication of a trend change. You see it, you know, these really low time frames, uptrend, and then you see it starting to lose this. It's a lot of testing of it, and then it closes below it, back above it, closes below it, hits it as resistance, and then back down. This is your first short right here. So I wait for that to play out, right? That's how I would do it if I was going to try to trade a low time frame and short this. But currently, obviously, I'm long, and I'm just riding the long side of the trade. Now, with that in mind, you see how the EMA is probably going to line up pretty well with this trend line, this 9-period EMA. Probably, most likely, when this starts to curl over, it's going to bounce a little bit and start to curl over, and then down it goes. You're going to see this EMA come into play. Right, similar. The EMA is probably going to be here in this trend line. The trend line and the EMA are probably going to be, you're going to get confirmation off of one or both of those. I don't use the 9-period EMA on a short-term time frame. I just use these trend lines, right? But yeah, I wouldn't just blindly short here, because right now you're just trying to pick a top. Unless you have some intel that I don't have, maybe you're looking at it as key resistance level over here somewhere, and maybe you are. If you are, then that's up to you. But as of right now, I don't see any real significant. You see this last big spike that we had in the last big sell-off? The next resistance is 294. It really is coming into resistance pretty soon here at 281. You can call this resistance as well. If you look at like the Heath, this is like a zone of resistance. But the 294 is gonna be a little bit more significant than 281, and then 326, and then possibly again here. But you're just gonna get paper cut to death looking at all these small resistances. The odds that we blast through to 388 right now, this is why it's really low, because you have a lot of these like intermediate resistance levels to work your way through. So, what's Bitcoin doing? Okay, are we getting a bounce finally? Are you gonna save it, Bitcoin? Come on, you can do it. I was hoping for at least 70K. This would be very disappointing if we rolled over at 68.6. That'd be just like super lame. Like we were hoping for like. We got barely above this 382 level, 67.7, and then it's been weeks since then. We need somebody to step up and buy. I was hoping to get to at least the 70,800 level. That was kind of my target. Otherwise, this is kind of a really lame breakout. But that's been the theme of 2021, right? Lame breakouts. Like we shouldn't expect that trend to change drastically for no good reason. Like I have a recency bias with trading. The more recent trend is the trend that I go with, right? So the same thing, like I just talked about it. Think about that. I was just showing you on the Litecoin chart, how you would identify the trend, depending on what time frame you're looking at, but you don't short until you identify that you're in a downtrend, and you don't go long until you identify that you're on a breakout toward going toward an uptrend, right? Okay. Where was I going with that whole comment? I don't know. Oh, the trend. Yeah, I mean, the trend is your friend. So again, the trend is not a constant upward momentum into a parabolic top. We didn't see a parabolic top on the first phase of this like we did in 2013. The trend is this series of false breakout, sell-off, false breakout, sell-off, false breakout, sell-off, and then a lower high and a big sell-off, false breakout, sell-off, false breakout, sell-off, and then starting to do the same thing now. That's the trend. The trend is your friend until the end. This is the most recent trend. So just because, a good example of that is, just because Litecoin was in a downtrend, on the USD chart, over here, doesn't mean it's in at one point it was in a downtrend over here, but it's no longer in a downtrend. It's now back in an uptrend, right? So, you can't use old trends and old patterns. Old trends are old trends. We have a recency bias in trading for the new trend, the current trend. And the current trend in Bitcoin is not a parabolic top, it's a rolling top. So the trend is your friend until the end. And this includes things like pattern trends. So anyway, all right. Do I normally check DJI NASDAQ? Yeah, I do. Let's see here. Take a look at these. DXY. Let's start with the DXY. So this is that long-term, my long-term, bottom trend line for the DXY. We broke down below it, did a little bullish W pattern here, double bottom, and then we've come back up into it and just been riding it as resistance. My guess is I don't know. The problem with DXY is it's obviously just a basket of fiats, so you just never know. Like for me, I'd have to have a better pulse on the macro economy and what other fiats are doing. But ultimately, it's holding up versus other fiat currencies, but it's losing its value massively versus equities. As you can see, this is on a rampage. NASDAQ is on a rampage. I've got this top trend line here. Yeah, we're coming into resistance now. And the other thing too to keep in mind, like I've come to this realization recently. See, silver and gold. Gold is looking like it wants to break out. Take a look at that. Gold is on the cusp of breaking out. We'll see if it does or not. So we had a daily close back above this level, so that is now support. Yeah, gold's looking like it wants to break out. That's interesting. Silver is just lagging for no good reason. I can't really call that a bull flag because this is kind of like more sideways structure. I know people probably want to call that a bull flag, but I don't know that I'd call it that. It's more of like a pennant to me right now. I mean, NASDAQ and S&P are both into resistance at the very tippy top of their price action at the moment. That's all I see there. What's the VIX doing? VIX is just down, 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 man. We had a VIX spike. What was that VIX spike? March 2020. Yeah, so we haven't had a VIX spike since our big March spike. It's just been down. VIX likes to do unpredictable things. The market, when the market gets uncertain, the VIX does its thing. So yeah, I mean, look at that general pattern on the VIX there. You're getting compression on the VIX. And this has happened, I don't know how many times in the past. You go back in time, this is like a constant thing. The VIX. This looks engineered, doesn't it? Like I'm of the opinion that these crises are more engineered than they are fake. You can see how predictable they are. It's ridiculous. Wedge, 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 breakout. This is the pattern of the VIX. So what I'm drawing here is all the obvious wedges that we've seen happen on the VIX. This is the volatility index. What happens is you get a big period of uncertainty, something happens, it spooks the market, and the VIX spikes, and then it just consolidates, and then it spikes, and then it consolidates, and then it spikes. It's just, constant, what's the, what's the fear on the markets of the week, of the month, of the year? So we're doing the same thing now, so you can bet we're going to get a volatility spike in the next couple months. What causes it? I don't know. I do not know, but it's chugging along, same pattern over and over and over and over and over again. Yeah, guys, I'm going to call it the 88.6 was probably the top in Bitcoin for a little bit. That's super obnoxious. This is getting overheated. I'm not seeing any buying of any significance. Lame. Let's go look at Whale Alert and see if we had any big transfers. I saw a big 1,500 coin transfer onto Coinbase the other day. 2 billion burned at the Tether treasury. $1 billion transferred from Tether to Binance. Well, maybe there's some reinforcements coming in there. 2 billion burned right here 24 seconds ago. Games, could be just games. 150 million thrown to Binance. So maybe Binance is getting ready to do some buying. Wow, Tether's getting printed like crazy. $1 billion. So maybe somebody's getting ready to buy. 500 a Bitstamp Bitcoin. Transfers between exchange are not interesting to me. I saw a big 1,500, 320 off of exchange. Zappo, don't care about. Small 400 to Binance, whatever. Where's the big one I saw? 400 to Binance, whatever. I saw a few hours ago a 1,500 into. That's a big transfer. 15,000 Bitcoin, $1 billion. Probably. Generally, I don't know. A lot of times this is internal exchanges on Exchange is moving in Bitcoin around internally. Here you go. 1,500 transferred from unknown to Coinbase. So there's going to be some sell pressure there if that doesn't get transferred out. Yeah. There's a lot of, like, all that tether coming into Binance, you know, you might get a shakeout. Like, they may get me here at my 66K. They might shake me out and then blast. I don't know. I would bet that money's coming on exchange to be able to buy a bigger dip, though. That's going to be used, or it could be used as short. That's the thing about tether coming onto exchange. When a tether gets minted and then sent to an exchange, it's generally because somebody in real life converted real fiat into a stable coin, and then the treasury had to print that stable coin and send it to the exchange in exchange for that fiat. And a lot of times it's used to buy. A lot of times, right? Of course, it's just, you know, people wanting to buy spot, but a lot of times it's used to short. So, you know, if you're gonna short and if you're a no coiner and you just hate crypto and you're going to short it, you're going to short with fiat, right? No coiners are going to short with fiat. So they're going to send fiat to an exchange to short it. Now they have exposure on the equity side, though, with the ETFs and trusts and like MicroStrategies. They have different ways exposure too. So a lot of times they'll short just, you know, with equities, markets, options and stuff. Not a fan of this price action, but I guess, you know, in theory, we could say, okay, here's our Hail Mary kind of bull flag. It's not really a clear bull flag, obviously. It's not very promising. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap up. You got my opinion on things. Who knows? Could be a fake out to the downside. I'm starting to get the hint that we're going to do something looks like about like this. Get to a key level, small bounce, and then resume down. Yes, tis what it looks like to me, unfortunately. Litecoin is telling me, yeah, we're getting a little overheated here on Litecoin. Where's Litecoin BTC? Did we come into that trend line yet? Not quite. I was going to go through a market sell out a small portion of my Litecoin if we had touched that, but we had not yet, so I'll just give it. But you see we're coming into this like kind of resistance zone here. Let me just draw. Let's look at some horizontal levels. Are we into anything interesting on horizontals? This back here is nullified by this up here. Not really. Not on the weekly. Yeah, I'm going to let it run. I'll just put a stop under it here in a bit. You can see this little bit of resistance we're into right now. This is the resistance we're currently into on Litecoin BTC. How significant that is, yeah, I could roll over here. What I'll do is I'll wait for a clear indication that we're rolling over here as opposed to just blindly selling into that. You know, that wasn't my original target. That wasn't my plan. I can see it now on the chart, and I will look for indications of that and maybe take action, tightening up my stop if I see it rolling over here at this resistance. My plan was this trend line over here, right, which would coincide more with this level, right about there. But anyway, all right, guys, I'm going to wrap up. I hope this was useful. I probably missed a lot of comments. Yeah, everyone in New York is already positioned. Plus, tell me. LTC, sell short, so no problem. Miss buying in Q with more than 1% lower than all-time high. Yeah, the market's like, so here's the problem with trading NASDAQ is, you know, generally speaking, a sane person will look at this chart and go, okay, you're into resistance. You're probably going to at least come back to the bottom of this trend line. The issue is that when markets really break, they don't break to the downside. Like, these are just like, you know, these are events where the market's uncertain. But when the markets actually break, it's because of the dynamics of governments not able to control themselves with you know, central bank money printing. They break to the upside. So I would bet if we break this uptrend trend line right here and we go parabolic, which we definitely could do, that would be our parabolic phase. And that would mean that we've got the system's getting really unhinged. And this is where you want to draw your launch angle trend line and be ready to short on the way down here or get out. You know, if you're in NASDAQ, you see this launch angle, it's I would say the odds are it actually breaks to the upside of this trend line at this point. If it does, then there's your parabolic move, and this is your launch angle trend line to know on NASDAQ if you're in equities closely tied to the NASDAQ, or if you're in QQQ or whatever you're trading. That's going to be your indicator that the parabolic top is probably coming to an end and give you a chance to rotate out. But yeah, I bet it does. I bet it breaks to the upside, gives you a parabolic move, and then we get that finally, that turnaround. You know, get a nice parabolic move, then you get your big sell-off that everybody freaks out about right back into the trend line or something. All right, guys, I'm gonna take off. Take care. 1 year ago, BTC was 15K. We're holding 67K after the new all-time high. I'm not complaining. No, yeah, I mean, this is. Let's before we wrap up, let me put one more thing into perspective. I'm not selling my spot, right? This is not like, oh, the Bitcoin's gonna roll over and crash. No, this is like I'm in leverage trades. I need to be responsible and tighten up my stop losses, or let my stop loss get hit here in profit, and just look for the next trade entry, right? We're just, this is a little bit of short-term uncertainty about what price actually wants to do. In the long term, you know, we're at $68,800. Like, I can't complain about Bitcoin being at those levels. It's just a matter of being responsible with leverage. My spot, I'm not touching my spot until I get a move, like a 5x move in a couple of months. You know, if we 5x from here to 300,000 in 2 months, then yeah, I'm like, all right, market's forced me to sell some spot because it's overheated, and I know I can buy more back lower after paying taxes. But I'm not going to sell my spot until I'm pretty confident that I can buy a lot more back than the delta between the taxes. So if you're just holding spot and you just like snooze, the level you want to watch for me, you know, all the spot holders, is I have this 120-day moving average that I use as my main indicator. And if you just want to hang out until you lose this level, 48,500 right now. You know, until Bitcoin closes below this and confirms it as resistance, if you're in spot, but even then, at this point, losing that level, like, I don't even know that I would sell spot, because the downside is going to be so muted. It's going to be like very small downside, because this had more downside because of how you see how big of a move that was on the 120. Like, if I were to do a measured move on the 120 itself from kind of the launch, the 120 itself was up 338% at that point. At this point, the 120 is only up, you know, 20%. That's not worth selling, losing it, honestly, because there's just not a lot of downside. And the downside is very limited, like over here somewhere, which would be very unexpected right now, but you know. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap up, though. I need to take off. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. Enjoy the rest of your day. Let's see here. I got to put back on some music. I don't even know what I've been listening to this whole time. Let's go back to Doge-wave. Here, where's my Doge-wave? I just let YouTube pick. Okay. Let's go out on wireless. See you guys.